Before we begin, remember that this video is for educational purposes only and isn't insurance advice. Always consult a licensed professional for your specific needs. Before you sign another insurance policy, you need to know this. Think you don't need flood insurance because you're not in a flood zone. Almost 25% of all flood claims come from low to moderate risk areas. In this video, I break down the real risk, what your homeowner's policy won't cover, how much flood insurance actually costs, and the simple decision framework to protect your home without overpaying. Stay tuned to the end for a free tool that makes comparing quotes dead simple. Alright, let's start with the surprising reality. Almost half the homes damaged by flooding each year sit outside the official high-risk zones. Here's why the old way of thinking about flood risk can leave you dangerously exposed. FEMA. Flood maps are often years behind actual development and weather patterns. They focus on river and coastal flooding, but miss urban flooding from heavy rain, small creeks overflowing, or new construction changing drainage. In fact, more than 20% of National Flood Insurance Program claims come from areas labeled moderate to low risk. So even if your mortgage company says you're safe, your home could still be at serious risk. If you live in a city or suburb, heavy rainfall can quickly overwhelm storm drains, sending water onto streets and into basements. This happens even on hills. Water flows downhill, pools against foundations, and seeps in through cracks you didn't know existed. Just a few inches of water across a finished basement can cost $10,000 to $15,000 to repair, and standard home insurance won't cover it. Warmer air holds more moisture, so heavy downpours are becoming more frequent and intense even in areas that never historically flooded. A 100-year storm no longer means once in a lifetime. Some cities have seen multiple 500-year events in a decade. This means your real odds of water damage may be much higher than any map suggests, and the cost of not having coverage is growing. Let's clear up the biggest misconception. Your typical homeowner's policy is full of fine print when it comes to water damage, and most people only discover the gaps after a loss. This chapter shows you exactly where your standard policy draws the line. If a pipe bursts inside your house, home insurance likely covers the damage. But if water enters from outside, like a rising creek, storm surge, or heavy rain runoff, it's considered flood and is excluded. Even if you don't have a creek nearby, water that seeps in through the foundation after heavy rain is often labeled surface water flooding. That's the gap most homeowners don't realize until it's too late. A lot of people think if the sewer backs up into their basement, flood insurance pays. Actually, standard flood policies don't cover sewer backup unless you have a specific endorsement. And if the backup is related to local flooding overwhelming the system, you might need both flood insurance and water backup coverage. That's a double gap that catches hundreds of families every storm season. Let's make it real. In a 1,000 square foot basement, just 1 inch of water can ruin carpet, drywall, insulation, baseboard heaters, and any furniture stored on the floor. The average flood claim in the US is around $50,000, but even a small loss of $10,000 could wipe out your savings. Without flood insurance, you're writing that check yourself. Quick reminder, this isn't personal advice. Policy terms and rates vary, so always compare and consult a licensed agent. Now that you know the risk is real and your standard policy won't help, let's look at what flood insurance actually looks like. I'll break down the two main paths, government and private, and the numbers you'll actually see. The National Flood Insurance Program provides coverage up to $250,000 for your home structure, and $100,000 for your home structure, and $100,000 for personal belongings. There's typically a 30-day waiting period before the policy kicks in, so you can't buy it when a storm is already on the radar. Premiums are standardized but can vary based on your state, and there are a few options to customize. For many, it's the only option, but it leaves higher-value homes underinsured. A growing number of private insurers now offer flood policies with building coverage up to $500,000 or more, shorter waiting periods, sometimes 10-15 days, and extra protections like replacement cost for contents. But underwriting is stricter. They may require an elevation certificate and fresh risk assessment. If you're in a borderline zone, a private quote could actually come in cheaper than NFIP for better coverage. Your rate isn't just about flood zone letters. The biggest factor is elevation at the lowest floor relative to base flood elevation. Other drivers include building age, foundation type, number of floors, and how far you're from a known flood source. Even if you're in Zone X, low risk, new mapping and future rain projections could increase your premium over time. That's why locking in a rate while your risk grade is low can be a smart move. Unlike car insurance, flood deductibles apply separately to your building and your contents. A common choice is $1,000 for each, but raising it to $5,000 can cut the premium significantly. Just be sure you have $10,000 accessible if both building and contents take a hit. Some private policies let you split deductibles by percentage of coverage, so ask about that. By now, you're probably thinking, okay, but how do I actually decide? Here's a straightforward way to weigh your specific risk against the cost without getting paralyzed by what-ifs. Start with FEMA's Flood Map Service Center, but don't rethink there. Use interactive tools like Flood Factor or your county's GIS maps to see heavy rain risk, not just coastal boundaries. Walk your lot after a downpour. Where does water pool? Do neighbors report basement seepage? A home at the top of a hill can still have a saturated foundation from poor soil drainage, even with no river nearby. Gather quotes. NFIP rate plus private quotes if available. If flood insurance costs $700 a year but a 1 in 30 chance of a $10,000 loss exists, your expectation of loss is $333 a year. The insurance beats that. Don't forget to include the loss of use if you can't live in the home after a flood. If you'd have to pay for a hotel, storage, and meals out of pocket, the financial case for insurance gets even stronger. If you own a condo on the 5th floor, your unit might not need building coverage, but your HOA's master policy might still leave gaps for common areas, and your personal stuff could be damaged by a roof leak during a storm. Another case, if you have no basement and live on well-drained sandy soil, risk is lower. However, any home with a basement, crawl space, or items stored at ground level should strongly consider coverage. New development upstream, a parking lot built next door, even neighborhood zoning changes can redirect runoff toward your house. As infrastructure ages, culverts and drains may clog or break. If you're planning to finish a basement or add an addition, your risk calculus should shift. Reassess every few years, especially after any major construction nearby. If you've decided to get flood insurance, this last part is crucial. I'll walk you through what to ask, what to watch out for, and how to use Insurance Guru to make the whole process smoother. To get an accurate quote, you'll need your home's elevation certificate, a document showing the height of your lowest floor relative to base flood elevation. If you don't have one, a surveyor can produce it for a few $100s. Once you have it, you can request quotes from both NFIP, participating agents, and private carriers. Provide the same info to each for an apples-to-apples comparison. Ask, does this cover additional living expenses if I have to move out? What about my finished basement contents and improvements? Is replacement cost or actual cash value for personal property? Are there sublimits for art, jewelry, or electronics? Some policies cover flood in a basement only for mechanicals, not drywall. Know those limits up front. Flood policies typically exclude mold unless it results directly from a covered flood loss, and you take reasonable steps to mitigate. They also often cap coverage for basements, crawl spaces, and detached structures. Some exclude damage from earth movement, even if caused by flood. Read the exclusion section carefully, or have an independent agent explain them so you're not shocked later. Once you've gathered your elevation certificate and know what coverage you need, head over to Insurance Guru. It's a free tool that lets you input your details once and receive side-by-side quotes from multiple carriers, all without getting spammed by a dozen sales calls. We designed it to help homeowners like you make a confident, informed decision without the hassle. The link is in the description. That's the practical version of what matters most. The big idea is to understand your real risk, see the gaps in your current coverage, compare quotes the right way, and avoid rushing into a decision without a clear picture of what you're protecting. If this helped, like and subscribe for more practical guides that help you compare costs, understand quotes, and choose the right coverage with confidence. Stay safe out there. Subscribe for more insurance guides explained in plain English. Thanks for watching. Remember, this is educational content only. Talk to a licensed insurance professional before making any coverage decisions. Subscribe for more plain English insurance guides.